On the agenda tonight, we're going to be having a listen to Katherine Jenkins, and she's going to be singing Everything I Do in Italian. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So this particular request has come through as an investigation to see whether Katherine's voice in this performance has been pitch corrected or not. And I believe it's not a live performance. I think this is the official release of the song. So we will be jumping into it. As always, there's a link in the description below if you guys want to watch this the whole way through without me interrupting it, but I will be jumping into it because this is an analysis video. So we will jump into it and see what we can see. Okay, so I'm jumping in straight away, and regular viewers to the channel will know that I've said in a lot of videos recently that pitch correction is now an industry standard, and I'm not sure people really understand what that means. It means it's standard across the whole industry, so it means that anything you're listening to, if it's music, it doesn't matter what genre it is, it doesn't matter if the singer's classically trained or not. Pitch correction is something that's going to get applied regardless. So here we can see on screen that, I mean, straight away when we start, we were, bang over this B4, and this is the thing about pitch correction, is that especially, I mean, this isn't a really recent performance, of course, but in the early days, as this would have been, relative early days of pitch correction, they just dragged everything over the lines, and a lot of producers still do that now, so it still looks really obvious, but as you work your way through, it's still just perfectly over these lines. Now, the thing about great singers like Katherine, and she is a fantastic vocalist, and I've seen many performances of hers, and she has this vibrato that obviously works its way into every held note, but that's the style, and that's what you'll get in classical music. And with a classically trained singer, they will always be hitting a note and getting into their vibrato, almost instantaneously, where Katherine doesn't do that, and she's holding these notes, obviously, that have been pitch corrected, but she does hold notes, has the ability to do that, and then will hit vibrato as well. And as you can see, her vibrato is more of a contemporary vibrato. And when I say that, you can have a lot wider vibrato going on than this. And when you're talking about musical theatre and yet, classical singers, opera, you can get quite a dramatic vibrato. But this is more, and I think some singers just appeal more to the mainstream. Some classically trained singers appeal more to the mainstream audience because of their vibrato. It's actually something that, if you look at Luciano Pavarotti's voice, as we've done analysis videos on his voice as well, you'll see that actually he didn't have a really wide vibrato. It wasn't always 3 or 4 or 5 semitones. It was quite a tight vibrato. When it's covering not a lot of pitch, which is what you hear in contemporary music all the time. You'll hear that kind of singing in the biggest hits of all time in the mainstream pop charts, for example. So Katherine has that in her voice. She also has pitch correction in her voice on this particular performance, but we'll listen on. And the other thing is that when she comes in straight on the line, and I know that people will say, who hadn't seen my videos, maybe she's just that good at hitting notes that accurately. Classically trained singers don't sing. They do not sing to A440 standard pitch, standard tuning, equal temperament. They sing to the instrumentation that they're hearing, and the instrumentation is never going to be perfectly on these lines. And sometimes throughout the performance, you might see, I'm just going to have a little look through, you might see the pitch monitoring software pick up a note that isn't, I mean, this all looks like vocals at the moment. I'm just going to keep going through. I'm trying to see something that isn't on the line to try and find... I don't think we're going to get anything that pops out. But, I mean, you can see as I'm scrolling through this, everything is perfectly over, these white lines, and everything's kind of snapped here. And I'm just going to let this play through. We'll have a listen. And just quickly, when I say about classically trained singers and great singers don't sing on these lines, they might hit a line occasionally, but they're singing to the pitch of the instrumentation. And in this case, you can hear that it's an orchestra, which means we've got stringed instruments in there that won't be playing on these lines. So as soon as you pitch correct a voice, it's now not relevant to, the violins that I've mentioned in previous analysis videos. But let's listen on. Hey, and here, I got quite excited there. I think, yes, this was the horn section here. This wasn't a voice. And if you look at that, you can see, maybe I'm going to be able to zoom in on this. And I'll go down here. Look at where the instrument is. And when I say the instrument is, in terms of the pitch, so this is what happens with instruments that are tuned. So this is what I mean. It's just backing up the point that I made, that great singers don't hit the lines because they are singing with what they're hearing. In this case, Katherine is going to be hearing something that's sharp. That's the note that sticks out. So therefore her vocal would be sharp. The reason that her vocals aren't sharp of the line in this performance at any point is because they've been moved over the line, because a producer is looking at these lines and adjusting the voice. Whereas the singer is listening to the instrumentation and placing the vocal exactly where she thinks it should be, where the most accurate frequency is. And it is there. Where she's placing her vocal, that is the best place to do it. But a producer's come in and said, no, it isn't. I know that actually on these lines, that's the most accurate, so I'm going to move it. So that's what's happening. The producer's thinking they know more than the singer, and therefore, drag the vocal perfectly over the line. But that's good, because we actually got an example of an instrument so that it could prove my point. Let's just listen on. Okay, just something to mention about the guitar solo here. Of course, epic guitar solo, on the original song. And I think here, because it's slow tempo, especially with an orchestra, all of that backing going on, for me, the vibrato's too fast. It's too energetic. You don't want energy. So just to point out the difference quickly, just have another listen. Yeah, so was that might have been a bend. So going and getting up to the point, And then we've kind of got this vibrato, which is happening like that. Whereas, I think, I mean, even if you were to do a bend and you know, whammy bar it, but I think, you know, it has to be a bit slower. That, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, too quick. Same thing there. Might have been on a fretted note there. And he actually kind of, I think he tapped on his whammy bar and then had this really fast vibrato again. Oh, and then we had this. And again, but this is the thing, that even there, you know, when I get to that last note, it feels wrong to, you know, to do it too quickly. Playing vibrato on guitar, a lot of people spend a lot of time working at it. I'm one of those people, so that, you know, I could do any speed that I wanted depending on the composition. But I know that other people just have a vibrato that they do, you know, regardless of the composition, being fast tempo, slow tempo. I tend to think that a faster vibrato is going to suit faster tempo songs. You know, traditionally, that's pretty much how it's worked. And then when you go for ballads, slow tempo numbers, having that control of vibrato to slow it down, you know, for me, just gives it a little bit more. But I am a guitarist. I know that we're looking at vocals here, but of course, as soon as there's a guitar solo, I will jump into it, especially if something, yeah, is maybe, or could just be a little bit tweaked. As I said, it's totally subjective, but for me, just a little bit too fast with that vibrato. Let's jump back into it. And one thing that I will say about this pitch correction that's being applied, because Katherine has a wide vibrato, it's not really wide, but it's going to be taking your focus away from pitch. Because the pitch is always moving, it means that it's not as obviously pitch corrected, or it doesn't sound as obvious as other more contemporary singers who might not have vibrato in their voice all the time. They might sing a straight note, which will be directly over this line with vibrato, or they might just sing straight notes anyway. So it's kind of constantly on this line, which means it sounds more obvious. So this is why it might, you know, not be as obvious to you listening to it. Ooh, let me just take this back again. I want to see if this was an instrument again. Yes, we have this horn section coming back, and this is a little bit more in tune, but I think if we were to zoom in on that really closely, it was actually a little bit sharp. Just got to try and find it, and there it is. Yeah, so it's still slightly sharp, but this is good because it's consistent. I mean, it is impressive that Katherine, with her voice, look at how evenly she gets into her vibrato. It's instant. So, you know, when you're hitting a note and going, nah, generally, you'll hit the note and then get into vibrato. But she's going, she's immediately starting the first wave of vibrato on pitch. Obviously this is pitch corrected, but she can do it in real life, so don't let this put you off. She didn't need this. And there we have it. Yeah, I mean, that's always, this kind of thing is always like a bit of a shame, where they feel like they've got to pitch correct it to the point of 0 cents. Not 1 cent sharp, not 1 cent flat. And or 1 cent flat. And, looking at this, generally, I mean, we've looked at some of the best voices of all time, and they naturally drift. They don't stay on the line all the time. So, just when I was thinking about this last note, I know that some people are saying maybe she's just that good that she can hit the note directly on the line. And again, great singers don't sing on these lines, but there is a chance that it might be on the line because Katherine was singing it there and it just happened to be on the line, and it's just one of those things that happened. So I thought, well, can I find her voice somewhere else just to compare a held note? And I found a live performance of this song, not only this, but performed over a backing track of the same orchestra backing. So we can look at her live vocal, and we're going to go back and compare them because the timing is exactly the same because she's singing over a backing track. And I have isolated her vocal on that other live performance. And just to have a look at this one at the end, spot the pitch corrected and the non-pitch corrected version. So I'm actually going to bring that on there, and I'll put that there so we can see pitch corrected on the left, live on the right. And you can see how with pitch correction it gets dragged instantly to the line, but she actually kind of missed the note here above. But then as we came down, she has this natural falling to the note when she then hits that pitch. And let's have a listen to it. Now, the other thing that becomes evident is they have edited her vibrato. And I know people are going to say, what? How can you do that? I have demonstrated this with Melodyne on the channel in the past. And Melodyne is a pitch correcting software that you can get for lots of different digital audio workstations. And it's not as perfect as this. It's not this consistent. So when we go through, and we're going to go through the whole thing, we'll have a little scoot through, but just to prove my point, let's have a listen from the beginning. And you know how I said at the beginning of this video, because I wasn't planning on doing this, but I thought, well, I might as well get something to compare it with, rather than you just taking my word for it that it is pitch corrected, even though I've been doing hundreds, if not thousands of these videos, so it's very obvious when you see it. But when I said about the beginning that she's just kind of perfectly on the notes all the time, have a look. Live, she's flat to the B4, but it still sounds great. And we're listening to now the isolated vocal of the live performance. And when we came down here, we were sharp. Here, this little notch was bang on. And then we've been centralized over the G4. And look at where Katherine's voice goes naturally. She actually isn't on the G4 at all. She actually goes down below it. But it still sounds great. And you can see at this point, how the natural voice is a lot more uneven with that vibrato at the end rather than, at the beginning. It's quite even here. But the peaks, and the troughs, the pitch that's being covered with the vibrato isn't as consistent in this kind of overly perfect pitch corrected version of her vibrato. On the right hand side, the live vocal, you can see how accurate she is, even though here technically you say, oh, that's a little bit above the line rather than being absolutely bang on it. But being bang on the line, this is the producer that's done this. So it might have been sharp, it might have been slightly flat, but the producer has moved it over these notes, over these lines. So we can see that here, technically you say, well, we might be below the line there, but we're really close. Great singers don't sing on these lines, they sing really close to them. And again, have a look at this vibrato. The way that now we start to see in Katherine's voice what she does naturally. She actually descends through that G4. So obviously pitch corrected is always going to be as perfect as you can get over the G4, which just never happens. And it's good that I found this live performance because I can show you what pitch correction looks like, being perfectly over the line, and what the real voice of the same person, this is the same singer, the same performance over the same backing, how it varies with a natural voice, but it doesn't sound bad. You can see, if you're watching left and right, how consistent she is vocally. And again, this brings up the question of, when you're looking at the live version and comparing it to the pitch corrected version, why pitch correct this? I mean, we're listening to it and we're thinking, or at least I'm thinking, you don't need to change this voice. Why are we changing things? Why are producers changing things when it sounds great? And the reason is because they're looking at it like we're looking at it. And like here, they think, oh, hang on, that went a little bit above the D5. Let's bring that back down onto the D5 to make sure now it's actually, not, you can't hear this. Listen to this D5. It was such a split second of na, 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 na. Nobody's going to spit out their drink, because it was so out of tune. So again, I mean, I don't want to spend too long on this video because I've been talking for a while already, but as we scoot our way through it, you'll see this kind of thing with this wider vibrato and it not really being over any line. If you were being strict about it, you'd say, well, that's between these lines. That's where Catherine's naturally singing this live, but on the pitch corrected version, the D5, it's not allowed to go anywhere other than the D5. So that's why it's just kind of perfectly over that line. But anyway, that's the bombshell for tonight's video, that classically trained singers are also being pitch corrected. It really doesn't matter on the genre or the style of singer. It will be applied industry-wide. So thank you guys for requesting this particular analysis video for tonight. Let me know what you guys think. Keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below for future videos. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!